Right everyone, WeaponCollector here. Right, I thought I'd do a video on the new offensive weapons laws that have just come in literally yesterday, which would have been May. They came in the May the 16th or May the 17th anyway, so either yesterday or the day before. And I thought I'd better tell you what's going on, because some people may not be aware of this. So I would recommend you share this video to people who may collect certain weapons that were legal, which are now illegal to own in your home and on private property. So I'll go over the new laws and I'll tell you, what's happening. So it's a new offensive weapons laws, basically, the Offensive Weapons Act 2019, and they've changed quite a few things and brought some new stuff in. So the main things are there's some new laws regarding the sale of corrosive substances, which is acid. That totally makes sense, that's a good thing. Then there's some law changes on the possession of, acid, and that, again, a good thing. There's changes to the sale and delivery of knives. So you will still be able to buy knives online, but you have to be able to prove your age to be able to have the knives sent to you. How that happens, I don't know. You'll have to wait and see to see how that's going to be done. I don't know if you're going to have to collect them from somewhere, or you'd have to show ID to a postman or a delivery person, similar to what happens with air guns at the minute in this country. So that's not too much of a bad thing. Then they've changed the offensive weapons. There's a list of, I think it's 19 items that are on the offensive weapons list. They were at one point legal to own. Now they're not. If you own any of the 19 items and the police come into your house and find them, you can be arrested for it and taken to court and convicted. So I'll go over those in a minute. They've changed the definitions of threatening with an offensive weapon. I don't really know much about that one, and then there's a prohibition on certain firearms now, which I think is they're prohibiting certain powerful rifles, basically. Someone like SRS Power or English Shooting may be able to tell you more about that. I don't have a firearms licence or shotgun licence because nothing of mine needs licences. I'll definitely go over more detail on these because some of it needs to be mentioned. So, and then there will be certain payments for the surrender of certain items, but I doubt you'd get it for the offensive weapons, which I'll explain later. So, the acid one, yeah, that makes sense. The possession, yeah. The knife delivery one, I've explained. The offensive weapons, this is what most people who watch my videos would want to know about. So, the items that will now be illegal to own in your home will be butterfly knives, disguised knives, flick knives, gravity knives, zombie knives, certain swords, which the swords are those cheap samurai swords you used to be able to buy. A full-size one of those would be illegal to own now, unless it's handmade. So if you've bought one since, I don't know what the date, I'll add an annotation, but if you bought a samurai sword since that date, it will most probably, if you bought it from a shop, your sword should be legal if it's handmade. The only way you can get around this really is if that sword that isn't handmade is under 50 centimetres, like that, which is now a wakizashi, that would then be legal because it's under the 50 centimetre limit. There's a couple of little caveats for that. Again, there's something to do with traditional methods before, being made before, with traditional methods before 1954, similar to the one I've got up there. That would be legal because it's a handmade World War II sword. So again, sword sticks, push daggers, blowpipes, telescopic truncheons, batons, straight batons, side handle batons, and friction lock truncheons, hollow coup batons, shurikens, which are ninja stars, kusari gamma, which is a sickle attached to a rope, a kotetsu shogi, which is a hooked knife attached to a rope, and a kusari, which is a weight attached to a rope, and then hand claws, and then lastly knuckle dusters or brass knuckles. If you own any of those items, which I would have listed next to me while I was saying it, they are now illegal to own in your home. Now, the only thing I would really say about this is this law is really so that when the police go to, say, a young drug dealer's house or a young thug's house, and they go there and they arrest them, before they couldn't take away those weapons. Now they will be able to. So most, I don't recommend this, right, but most law-abiding people shouldn't really need to worry, potentially. You know, I don't even want to say it, but you know what I mean? Most law-abiding people, if you had these locked up, you are breaking the law, but how would anyone know, potentially? But someone like me, who I sometimes get visits from the police, I no longer own anything on that offensive weapons list. I haven't actually for about a year, because I knew this would definitely happen. So yeah, you do want to get rid of those items, and there will be ways to get rid of them as far as I'm aware. It does say about surrendering those items. So soon there should be a way to take those items somewhere if you want to get rid of them. I'm not 100% sure how that works. You know, it'll probably just be surrender bins. Same with the firearms. There is a thing about payment in respect to surrendered items. Now, I don't know whether this would definitely happen or not, but I wouldn't expect to get money paid for anything bought recently or even in the last 20 years. Since most of these things, because most of these things have been on this ban list for years. So if you own any of those things prior to when they was made offensive weapons, to get them in this country, technically you would have legally imported them. So I can't see the police or any courts giving you money for something you illegally imported. But if you've got a knuckle duster from, you know, 1950s or something, or whenever, I don't know when they was banned, you know, stuff like that, or some of the ones you could buy before they was banned, or put on this list for, because they weren't banned outright, they was banned for import, export, buy or sell, lend or manufacture. So you could still have them if you still had them, but now you can't. You cannot have any of those items at all. So it would be up to you to test whether you could get money for surrendering those items, but I think the ones, if they was illegally imported into this country, I doubt you'd get any money for them. Your firearms though, you would. The full details to what I've told you will be below in the description, and there'll be a link to a PDF that's got all of the details on it, because there's a bit more to what I've told you, a bit more detail to it. You know, they banned things like bump stocks, but again, some of the firearms channels could be able to talk to you about that better. Oh, one thing I did forget. They've changed the definition of a flick knife now. Now, I can't tell what this really means yet, but potentially a spring-assisted flipper knife may now be classed as a flick knife. So, to get around that, take the springs out of your spring-assisted knives, if you've got them, just to be safe, until you find out definitely if a spring-assisted flipper knife is now classed as a flick knife, because it might be. But without that spring in, it's just a folding knife then. So yeah, be very, very careful about that. Spring-assisted flipper knives, or not even flippers, just a spring-assisted knife with a thumb stud, that could now be classed as a flick knife, but it must have a spring in it. If it doesn't have a spring, you'd have to read the wording and see what you think on that. Yeah, so that's it for about the basics. I've told you the main things. So the only thing that I think would affect most law-abiding people would be the offensive weapons part. Most people won't be carrying acid. You know, some people do, obviously, but you know, most normal people won't be walking along the streets with a cup of acid, will they? You know, but there are quite a few innocent people who could have these offensive weapons in their home, because there are many collectors who like these kind of things. They have them for novelty items. People don't necessarily collect these things to hurt someone, not in the slightest. You know, I've never collected a single thing or made a single thing with the intention of hurting someone. It's purely for, you know, I'm a collector, I like this kind of stuff, it's interesting to look at, makes a very nice display, you know, and people like it, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with collecting this kind of stuff. It's no different to someone who collects cars or dolls or, you know, toy trains. It's no different really. So yeah, so just to recap, spring assisted knives may now be classed as flick knives, which are now illegal to own, and butterfly knives, disguise knives, flick knives, gravity knives, stealth knives, zombie knives, certain swords, sword sticks, push daggers, blowpipes, telescopic truncheons, batons, hollow kubatons, shurikens, kusari gamma, koetsu shogi, and the kusari, and the hand and foot claws and knuckle dusters are now illegal to own in your house or on private property. So if you ever think you're going to get a visit from the police, do not have those things in your house, because, you know, you will be arrested and convicted of them now. Right, yeah, so that's it. I've told you the main things I think will concern most people, which are mainly the items on the offensive weapons list. You do not want to own those now. You know, I mentioned earlier some things, but yeah, it's entirely up to you, but I would not own those items now. So don't forget to share this video, because you know, you don't see many of these going about. I think people need to know about this in the UK, because there could now potentially be tens of thousands of people potentially breaking the law without knowing it, and I don't think that's fair really. You know, people should know, because the thing is, if you don't know and you get done, police say that's not a defence. They say not knowing isn't a defence. Yeah, but if I knew, I wouldn't break the law. I wouldn't have broke that law if I'd have known it was a law. So yeah, all of the info is in the description if you need it. The whole entire details will be there in the description, and a link to the main YouGov websites and that. Alright? Don't forget to share the video, don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Alright? Thanks a lot. See you later. Before you leave, if you ever wanted to support this channel, you can now via Patreon, or by shopping at Amazon.com and Gearbest. There's more info below if you need that. Remember, if you want to get full notifications for this channel, click the bell, and I'll see you later. Cheers.